poppin'? Real ones. Logan Murdock here. Roger Bell there. Hardback in the motherfucking cut. Cliff on the boards. Victoria on the video. I think last week we had a sad episode talking about whatever we were talking about last week. I think this is also going to start off as a sad episode because, damn it, Kyrie Irving is injured. And he injured his knee in last night's game. And, I saw it on the Instagram where, I thought it was like a Kobe moment, right? He got held up and got picked up to the free throw line. Initially, it was called a knee sprain. Woke up this morning, it is a torn ACL. Howard, after everything that the Mavericks have gone through, on a scale of 1 to 95, how down bad are they here on March 4th, 9:07 a.m. Pacific time?
They've shattered the scales. They've shattered every measuring tool. I don't even know how you measure like just anguish and woe and misfortune in this league, but they've broken the damn scale. It's almost, if it weren't so sad, it'd be almost comical. Like we've reached like fictional TV script that doesn't seem plausible proportions. Like it's gotten to the point where it's like, oh, that's cute. You're going to make it like a whole like curse thing where you traded your franchise star and now all these terrible things are going to just befall you. Guys are just going to fall down left and right. And Anthony Davis is going to play an amazing quarter and then he's going to be injured and out for weeks. And then, Gafford's going to go down. PJ Washington's going to, and then Kyrie's going to blow out his ACL. Like if you wrote it down this way, you wouldn't believe it. It's sad. It's awful. It's weird because if you believe in this kind of thing, it does feel kind of karmic. But that's kind of mean to even say. I feel like it's brutal, though. It's absolutely brutal. And yeah, not for nothing. If all these things had happened and you had kept Luka, you still have a chance of being a viable team. But now this season is toast, and next season could be toast because it's an ACL, and that's 9 to 12 months usually. Like Kyrie maybe is back in the middle of next season, maybe. But
he might miss all of next season, too. There's a chance he could miss all of next season.
There's a chance he could also miss all of next season. He's turning 33 this month, Kyrie. So, like, there's no silver lining here, fellas. Like, this is a disaster.
How you feeling, Ra?
I mean, Howard just kind of summed it up. It's just first of all, I feel terrible for Kyrie. He was having a fantastic season, individually, not just as a player, but coming off of what had happened in Brooklyn and to some degree Boston, I think he's just done a tremendous job of proving to people that didn't necessarily have to define him as a leader, as a teammate, as a pro. I was happy to see it all come together for him in terms of the play, the person, the leader. I was excited for the season that he was having. So on a human level, just knowing him and the family, like it hurts. That one sucks. For the franchise, the fans, that's just what else could go wrong, I guess, at this point. You hate to say that because inevitably something can, but like it's just a terrible spot. I feel bad for Nico too. Whether you agree or disagree with the move, and I think we all agreed that you could have gotten more assets if you decided you had to make the move. Like, you're not going to get a chance to see what his vision was for any significant amount of time, right? And that little bit of time that we did see it for those couple quarters, whether you could sustain that or not is besides the point. But it looked pretty fucking cool for those couple quarters, and you just don't get to. So for everyone involved, I just feel really bad. It was terrible to see it last night.
You brought up Nico Harrison, and that was like the second person that came to mind when I saw this injury, Ra. Like, first and foremost, Kyrie, like that, the first emotion is, damn, this sucks. But the whole point of this trade, in Nico Harrison's words, was we will be a viable contender for the next 2 years. That pretty much is shattered, right, Beck? That timeline is pretty much... I don't know what they do this offseason, but you have a high salaried guy in Kyrie. How do you even revamp this roster to not even contend, but just stay above water at this point? They do have Anthony Davis, right, who is a great player, but is also injury prone, and also hasn't. I think when he's led a team, I forgot the highest record he's had, but it wasn't like they were a number one. The Pelicans were ever a number one seed while he was the number one guy, and that was what the beginning of the peak of his powers. Like, what is next for the Mavericks to stay above water?
I mean, not to belabor the discussion that we had after the trade was made in the first place, but this was exactly the risk. Anthony Davis is 32, 31. He's turning 32 a week from today. Anthony Davis is 32 a week from today. Kyrie, as I said, is turning 33 later this month. That's your window. However long those guys can still be elite players is your window. And Anthony Davis was certainly playing at an elite level this season. Kyrie Irving was certainly playing at an elite level this season. But these are the risks of stars in their early to mid 30s, especially guys who, like Kyrie and Anthony Davis, both had very detailed injury histories before this. This was the risk. It was baked in all along. And you did shorten your window because Luka gives you a 10-year window or more. And Kyrie and Anthony Davis give you like a 2 to 3 year window, which Nico himself kind of alluded to. I didn't like that reasoning at the time, and I don't like it now. And it's it just looks worse every week, right?
Man, I don't even know what his math skills were like on that one, man. He said, you know what, I'm going to just, instead of a 10-year window, I'd rather have a 2-year window. That doesn't make any sense. It makes zero.
There's nothing about it that made sense. I mean, we've belabored that one to death. But real quick, so Kyrie's got a player option for next season, which if he's healthy and coming off like an all-NBA caliber season, maybe he's opting out and then, getting Dallas to re-sign him to, 3, 4, 5 year max deal or something close. That's what he would have asked for anyway, I'm sure. Hurt, ACL, out for most or all of next season. Are they still doing that? Or is he just picking up his option at $44 million, playing it out and then see where things stand? Dallas is in the worst possible situation here because by trading Luka and placing the ball literally, figuratively, and everything else in Kyrie's hands, you have tied your fate to him. If Kyrie can't play again, that's not the case, but if he couldn't play again or if he walked away, you're screwed. So you really have to pay him all, the most that he is eligible for or asks for. But now it's in the context of an ACL recovery and at age 33. And by the time he returns, he's 34. Are you? I do
want to say something. I do think he's back by December of next year, though. Like I think
December.
Yeah, I think ACL December, January. Like, yeah. Well, I think
when Clay got it, when Clay tore his ACL, that was in June. And I will give the caveat that it was COVID, but they weren't expecting him back until the following season after they got hurt. And that was 3 months before.
So what are we? What is January of next year from now? That's what are we in March? 9 months?
9-ish.
Yeah, I think
that's the early side.
Yeah, I think what they do with ACLs, I think you see him in late December, January next year.
Guys are back. Raja, you're right. Guys are back faster now than they were 10 years ago from ACLs.
That doesn't mean he's himself, mind you. Like,
right.
Like,
it's often like you can be back, but you're not yourself until like a year and a half, 2 years, which is why, and I know this is going way back, but even like the part of the whole Derrick Rose saga with Chicago back in the day was like, yeah, I could play right now, but I don't want to play until I'm able to be me.
Even that was a decade ago, though, wasn't it?
Over, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean,
that's
like,
what I'm saying.
I just want to say, because like I'm in the world of like, I see a lot of young kids having these unfortunate injuries and stuff like that, and it's pretty remarkable how quick these little jokers are back.
They can, but Kyrie's 33 in a couple of weeks, so it's a little different. Like I think you're going to err on the conservative side. If it's 9 to 12 months, I think you're probably erring on the conservative side. I mean, we're all going to be talking.
And Kyrie's had knee issues beforehand, right? I mean, we're all not doctors, but he's had knee issues before.
I'd have to go back and look at
15.
Yeah.
I think
I was with him. I was
like
taking him to Dr. Andrews on to see about it, and yeah, man, like go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I did. I mean, like it is not nearly the death sentence to a career that it once was, and
for sure for sure. But he's 33. And this time next year, he will be on the verge of being 34 and coming off of ACL. Like, how close to the old Kyrie is he at that point? So, Raja, regardless of how quickly he may recover, age is a concern, and they're gonna need, and they're completely capped out. They're gonna need somebody else to run the offense through starting opening night of next season. Like, they've got no flexibility to do that. Maybe they flip Gafford for somebody, but like, you lost all your room for error when you traded the third best player on the planet for Anthony Davis and lost a ton of playmaking and scoring with it. So they boxed themselves in, and now the worst case scenario has hit, where the one guy who could still create is now out for the rest of this season and at least part of, if not all of next season. I don't know where you go from here. Like, I do not envy them in the least. I thought the Phoenix Suns were possibly the most screwed team in the league of the disappointing, high-priced teams with expectations. But man, I think the Mavericks just leapfrogged them.
Yeah, and then for clarity, Kyrie fractured his kneecap in the 2015 NBA Finals and
also left
knee surgery on the same left knee. Just brutal. And also, this is coming on the heels on the same day that the Dallas Mavericks announced that they were hiking ticket prices for season tickets, but 8% to fund a certain technology. You talk about just a cascade of just one, how to fuck over a fan base, but two, just having like zero. What's the word here? Very, very disappointed in just what's going on. Just zero self-awareness in how you are as an organization, where you stand with your fan base after you already just traded a generational star. And now that you're going to hike up ticket prices for a fan base that is already pissed off. And another thing, like, it's not like the Mavericks they've done a lot to become one of the franchises in the Dallas area, but they're not the Cowboys, right? Like, they haven't won a World Series in the last 3 years, right? So they're still trying to market themselves to that fan base even after all these years. Howard, what the fuck is the ownership doing right now? What's going on here? What the hell?
You know what the most offensive part of the season ticket?
I'm getting hives of like John Fisher right now. Like, I'm just getting just like real triggered right now when I see what's going on with the Mavericks.
The really offensive part of this, in addition to, we traded a generational star. By the way, we need you to pay 8% more for your season tickets. I love this explanation. The Mavericks say that, this is from the AP story. Shout out to the AP. The Mavericks say that despite the price adjustments, full season ticket holders will continue to save 15 to 23% compared to projected secondary market prices. Are you fucking kidding me? It's actually a cost savings, guys. We're raising the price, but it's actually a cost savings because if you bought it on StubHub, it'll be more. Like, what kind of rationale is that? What kind of shitty sales pitch or
you actually cutting into my margins, bro. You're not actually, what are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense.
It's just.
Do they not know math in the Mavericks organization? What the hell? We're talking about two year windows to 10-year windows, and now we're talking about this with ticket prices?
It's insulting. It's absolutely insulting to their fan base, which they've already insulted multiple times over. I still do not buy into any of the silly conspiracy theories, the major league adaptations, in which this is all just some plot to move them to Vegas. That's not happening, folks. Just stop it. They are,
Howard,
however, doing everything possible to make themselves look like the.
Your third eye isn't open like me and Rogers, bro.
You've got a hat on that's covering your third eye. You're just stop. It's not that. They're just completely inept as an ownership group. Absolutely, positively inept, tone deaf, clueless. Possibly more than any ownership group I've seen in a long time, or at least since Donald Sterling was banished to hell.
Jeez.
Yeah.
What? Howard's on a heater right now. He's on a heater. But when you see this type of stuff, Raja, like when you see, the fan base stuff, the trading away stuff, you've been on the organizational side of things, right? And I, as a educated observer, when I see this type of stuff, I just see rock bottom on the horizon for the Mavs in maybe a year and a half ish. I don't see, you don't see basketball people making basketball moves and basketball decisions. What do you think the immediate future is of this team? Should you be concerned if you're a Mavericks fan? Sorry to all my Mavericks fans. We're pouring out a little liquor for you guys, but what do you see on the horizon for this team?
I mean, I think you have to be concerned if you're a Mavericks fan, right? Like everything that's that's happened as of late should give you good reason to be concerned. What they look like, I don't know. I don't fucking know. Like they, the key with ownership, as I found when you're coming into something new, is to not think that because you were great at making money in some other business that you have everything figured out when you come to a new business, right? And I think that would, you ask anybody who had succeeded in multiple business endeavors, they'd probably tell you there's a lot to learn as they go to each one, right? And I say that to say that that ownership group has to find itself some people that can be real sounding boards and real voices of reason and real, mentors, if you will, to them. Because there are just ways that you do things in the league, and there are ways that you don't. And, I feel bad for them. There was going to be a rollout of this price increase at some point. On the heels, you just got to be a little bit more buttoned up about strategically how you're going to do shit like that. You got that on the horizon. The Luka deal presents itself. Like all of these things can't be factored and taken into account independently. It all goes into one big think tank, and we got to play everything off of each other. And how are we going to roll all of this out to a fan base? And they're clearly struggling to do that. They could not control the Kyrie thing. That's unfortunate. But to Howard's point, that is a risk that you were taking when you decided that you were going to let a guy with as much runway as Luka has go for two relatively often injured dudes being the face of your relatively short window moving forward. But they ultimately didn't control the injury and the rollout of the ticket price increase. That was just really unfortunate that it happened on the same day. But they have work to do. And you got Mark Cuban. I don't know how, Mark's a friend of mine. I don't know how involved he is. I don't know how much they heed his advice or how much they seek his advice or anything like that. But they need someone in camp that has real NBA experience at the general managing, even ownership level, to come in and consult and be something that they can lean on in times of having to make these kind of decisions and maneuvers, because they just don't have it figured out yet.
What's the likelihood of that happening, Howard? Of them actually finding basketball people and righting the ship? Because they do have good players, right? They do. Or is my premonition a little on the nose? Do you have faith that they will figure it out even throughout all of these just catastrophic last month and a half for them?
There's a lot of this new owner syndrome thing, right? So Matt Ishbia with Phoenix, right? That's the more traditional new owner syndrome, where it's, I'm going to spend my way to success. I'm going to be hyper aggressive, and then it backfires. And that's what's happened in Phoenix, right? And we've seen versions of that over time. In fact, there was even a light version of that with Cuban way back when, in the early 2000s when he first took over in Dallas. The Adelson family, Patrick Dumont with Dallas, it's a different kind of faceplant here, where it's not over aggression. It's just not very smart aggression. It's not they didn't just go out and try to outspend everybody. They didn't go out and trade all their draft assets to get Kevin Durant or something. They just empowered their front office or empowered their GM to make a catastrophic decision. And then a lot of bad luck has befallen them along the way. The season ticket price thing, that's on you as owners or as a business, or on the people that you have put in power to make those decisions. If anything, you keep your ticket prices flat, or you discount them slightly for next season, and you send a nice note to your season ticket holders going, hey, we know there's been some concerns. We've got a plan, blah, blah, blah. Try to reassure them, meet them in the middle somewhere, but at least acknowledge their anguish at the Luka trade without naming it, and cut ticket prices or leave them the same. But raising them and then pretending like it's justified and ignoring all the other shit that just happened, specifically the Luka deal, is insane. I don't know. Yes, they should absolutely be talking to Mark Cuban, if they're not already, about how to do this better, because Cuban had his mistakes along the way. Mark will be the first person to admit that, and he has over the years. But he learned from those mistakes by and large, and did a pretty good job of running that team, at least on the basketball side. So yeah, they should be talking to him. And They have smart people in that front office, including Nico. But Nico's trade was a huge mistake, and there's no getting around that. And do you need other advisors? That can get complicated, right? You don't want to undermine Nico. Like if you want to undermine him, well, then replace him. So it's a tough balancing act, bringing in like the quote unquote consultant types, ex NBA executives to be like your sounding board without it feeling like you're undermining. Jerry West did that very well with the Golden State Warriors and then with the Clippers. So you can do that. You can find some elder statesman type who's been around the block, who you trust, who knows their way around the league, and who's got more experience than maybe your still new-ish GM. That's one way to do it. But that wouldn't have headed off this season ticket fiasco. That's a whole other problem. That's not even a basketball ops problem.
Yeah, and I want to be clear. Like I'm talking about at the level of discussion above Nico, right? Like we can talk about Nico and the trade and whatnot, but I'm just talking about organizationally, like not the basketball ops side. I'm talking about the business side of it, and I don't know who would be out there to do that, but that's where I was coming from with it. More so on hey, how do you run this business, from our perspective before we get to Nico's decision making and whether we're going to authorize something or not. Like that has to become their first order of business, right? Because that's what you're talking about with the tickets and the fans and so on and so forth. Then we can get to like Nico and basketball ops and stuff.
You brought up Mark Cuban, Howard, which is a good person to bring up. But I think over the last, we're just playing inside baseball here, over the last few months since, he ceded ownership, it doesn't seem like he's getting much input in the decision-making as it stands, right? Like, it doesn't seem like his voice is that big now in the Mavericks organization, considering the last few moves that have happened.
I'm not sure his voice is there at all. Mark Stein had reported this on his Substack within the last couple of months, where Cuban basically said outright, yeah, I expected, because remember, all the reporting was Cuban was still going to be, if not alternate governor, then he was at least going to have a large say in basketball ops and was going to be a certain presence there, was still going to be very involved. And Cuban told Stein, I don't have the quotes in front of me, but basically said like, yeah, that's what I expected, but no, that hasn't happened. That's not the case. So Mark is still very present. You see him at games. You still see him sitting courtside or nearby. He's still a minority owner, but it's pretty clear like he is not involved in the day-to-day at all, or very minimally. And I think that's a mistake. Whatever you might think of Mark Cuban, it's absolutely a mistake to immediately push him to the side and say, no, we got this. You guys know nothing about the NBA or how to run an NBA team, and it's showing every day.
Yeah. It's tough. It's a tough scene. All right, let's take a quick break, and we're going to talk about the team on the other side of this mega trade a few weeks later. And we are back. Me and Raja for the moment. Howard is fucking with his SD card. He didn't check it before the pod. Was not prepared at all. It's crazy. So we're going to talk about the Lakers really quickly because they are 16-4 over their last 20 games, completely undermining Howard's prediction that they would be ass in the back stretch of the season. What have you seen from the Lakers thus far? And like, what does it say about the trade and honestly just how Luka has ingratiated himself into the Lakers fabric and how great LeBron is playing? It's a big question, but I know there's a lot of answer to that.
There's a lot to unpack here. First of all, I'll apologize to the Lakers as well. I while on one hand at our live show, I did have them when we did like the dark horse candidates, like, and the crowd was kind of like, what? When I said the Lakers.
It was a Bay crowd. They was hating, to be fair.
Yeah, I'll take a little bit of credit for that, but I also did not say, I said I didn't, Howard actually said they could be a good defensive team because I remember this conversation. And I said, oh, you're not going to put Luka Doncic out there and LeBron and have two relatively poor defenders at this stage in their career and be a better defensive team. And I was wrong. Like they have been really good defensively. And let's be clear, this started before Luka got there. Like they were defending. And that was kind of why, like, I didn't agree with when Howard said that, because I thought you were taking out pieces and putting in something that traditionally, at least historically, had not been a very good defender. But they have been really, really good defensively. And it's not just personnel driven. It's schematically. So you've got to give JJ Redick a lot of credit. You've got to give the players a lot of credit for buying in, but they're not afraid to, scramble around, double. Like they know that they're soft interior wise and size wise, so they make up for it with a lot of game planning. But to do that, you got to get the buy-in. Obviously, you have to be able to play at a certain level physically. LeBron, I'm just gonna say this shit right now, like he could be the fucking MVP this year.
Fucking wild. Did you see that graphic where it said like he was having the same stats that he did when he was 26 during the 2012 season? They basically have the same stats as how he is at 40.
Yeah, I didn't see it, but right before we came on, I was looking up his. I had to do it. I was like, man, what the like what? And I was just looking at it, and you're talking about. I mean, these aren't career numbers, especially with the scoring, but they're all right up there. And the fact that he's got that team playing, and then let's get to the Luka of it. Him and Luka are starting to work together. Like they're starting to figure it out. Luka's legs are starting to come back. He's starting to figure his way around that offense. LeBron's realizing that, yes, I can stand in the corner sometimes when Luka has the ball, but I can also, this frees me up to get out in transition and run in a way that I quite frankly haven't been able to do all the time because of the personnel that's been on my team. And then Luka's able to advance it and get him out in transition. And so you're seeing two highly intelligent basketball players kind of figuring it out. JJ Redick deserves a lot of credit. The rest of that team for the buy-in, the support. I mean, they're playing good basketball. I would not want to play them in the Western Conference right now. If you said to me, Oklahoma City, Lakers, I'm taking Oklahoma City, but there's a part of me that would tell you I could definitely see the Lakers when they're playing well and playing like this. And that's the question for me is, this is a pretty good sample size now of them, defending and looking like this, but like that's the way they would have to play to be the threat that they could potentially be. And I just have to apologize because I didn't see them defending at this level, quite frankly. And I thought it might be a little bit more difficult for Luka and LeBron to figure that out. And there were a few games there, but they seem to be getting it together. And defensively, I'm fucking blown away. Like, I really am.
You talk about defense, and I think one of the things you didn't say, but you alluded to, is the defense prior to the trade was centered around Anthony fucking Davis, who was one of the best, if not the best, low post defender in the league, right? A defensive anchor. How hard is it to switch your defense mid-season when you take a guy out like that and it doesn't seem like you miss a beat because you have to adjust? What does that say about JJ Redick? Because I think he needs the flowers.
Yeah, incredible. Thank you for like elaborating, but that's what I'm saying. Like that's incredibly difficult. And why JJ Redick gets the flowers and why I said, is equal to how good some of them are individually. Schematically, they are great. Like, when you have AD, you don't have to live in a world where you're in a double situation all the time and scrambling out. Like you don't necessarily have to worry about being a pack to paint. Like we're going to make you shoot a bunch of threes. Like you could get away with letting people into the interior a little bit more because you got the eraser back there. But the way they're made up now, like those are things that you have to account for. Like, we're going to listen, guys, when we get certain matchups and we got it big, like, you have two choices as I see it with the bigs that can dominate you on the block. You either let them go for theirs and you cut off all the other, avenues to guys getting 15 to 20 that would support the post player going off. Or if he's so brilliant and capable of beating you himself, you double him and you start to scramble around and try to run people off the shots. And I've seen him do both. Like they're really flexible with the game plan. JJ's not afraid to throw shit at the wall, and those dudes are executing it.
Also, another thing that was very underrated was Jared Vanderbilt coming into the lineup right before this trade. He's been injured for seems like his whole Lakers career, but he's a great defender, especially somebody that can switch, that can guard the pick and roll, like how they're icing screens. It's just, I'm in my bag when I'm watching them, Raja. Like they're doing really, really well. Like when you look at the personnel afterwards, you see a Jackson Hayes, and you're like, I don't know. I don't know if this is going to work low post wise. They're playing their asses off, and it's been great. Howard, are you back?
I'm
wait,
back.
hold on. Wait, you're back, Howard. Do you have anything to say for yourself to Los Angeles right now?
Look at you putting on your Laker cape. My God. Chill out. My concern, which clearly the Lakers had too, was you traded the anchor of your defense and you have no other bigs. They clearly had the same concern because they promptly traded for Mark Williams, who they then promptly untraded for. Not having an anchor big, not having rim protection, not having size, like those things all should doom you in the short term. And I my thing with the Lakers when we talked about this a few weeks back was, and after the trade, was simply, I don't see how they can actually be viable this season. Like, great that they got Luka, fantastic, but you got more work to do. That's still the case. And this offseason, they will clearly be going out and trying to find a viable starting center who's an upgrade from Jackson Hayes. What they've done in the meantime is incredible. Raja did a really great job of explaining it. I'm still not sure how they're pulling it off, Raja. And I'm still curious to see how that holds up for the next month and a half and then into the playoffs. I'm really curious to see whether you can pull this off. I know they beat the Nuggets in a one-off on a Saturday night a week and a half ago or whenever it was. Can you beat the Nuggets 4 out of 7 without any size? Can you beat the Oklahoma City Thunder 4 out of 7 when they've got Isaiah Hartenstein and Chet Holmgren out there? Like, they're doing it right now. I don't know if it's smoke and mirrors or just, busting their asses, which they clearly are. But LeBron's still 40, and Luka's still, for the course of his career, a net negative as a defender. It's amazing what they've done. Credit to them for that, and credit to JJ Redick for scheming them in a way that has made this possible. Is it sustainable? I think that's still a fair question.
But that is the question, right? Like, the question is, because they don't have the margin for error to not be as good as they are, or as good as they have been defensively, and for LeBron and or Luka to not be playing great. Like, they just, you know what I mean? Like, those things have to sync up for them to have the type of legs as a playoff team that the Laker fan might want them to have. You know what I mean? And it's fair to wonder if that's sustainable. It's very fair to wonder that. That's the question. It's crazy. It's crazy to watch because, Howard, you're right, and you're right. Like, LeBron's 40 and you're right, and Luka's a net negative as a defender throughout his career. You're right. And then there's still part of me, I look at their lineup, and while they're not huge around the rim, they're really long and really versatile. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, they're just big bodies flying around out there. Like, it's an interesting thing. Got to give a lot of credit, but not a ton of margin for error with whether they are, going to be really good defensively and have a chance to win a game or not.
Howard, you are a voter, and we talked about this offline pre-pod, and you vote on Coach of the Year. What is JJ Redick in that race, right? Obviously, it's a two-horse race with JB Bickerstaff and Kenny Atkinson. But JJ seems to be creeping up into that conversation. I'm not sure if he's going to win it, but he's definitely making a really, really good case right now down the stretch of the season.
He's making an incredible case, and I don't think anybody considered, obviously at the beginning of the season, it's, is he even going to be a good head coach? We don't know. He's never coached before. And then, he's obviously really smart about the game and everything else, but like putting that into practice is a different thing. And then, they were kind of having the kind of season that you expected, right? Some ups and downs and whatever along the way. I don't think up until the last few weeks that you would have even thought about JJ in that conversation, but he's in it now. I still think this is probably a two-person race between Bickerstaff and Kenny Atkinson, which is just wild considering that Atkinson replaced Bickerstaff in Cleveland. But it's like, those are the two most and that's the thing. Coach of the Year tends to be the who overachieved or surprised us, the fans and media the most, like who exceeded expectations by the most. It's not necessarily who had the best record or who did the best overall job. It's a lot of it happens to be, and I admit this as a voter, it's a lot of like, oh crap, you guys weren't supposed to be this good. Guess you did something right. And then you get into the details of it. Obviously, it's not as quite reductive as that. But JJ's in the conversation now. I don't know if he'll crack the top two, but he'll probably be third on a lot of ballots. And again, as I say that, it's March 4th, and we've still got 5-6 weeks of games to go here. Let's see them sustain this. If they do, and they finish top 2, 3, 4 in the West with a defense that's, as of right now, like if you do the last 15 games, I think they're number one defensive efficiency, which is incredible. JJ deserves a ton of credit and is going to get some love for Coach of the Year. Again, not going to win it, I don't think, but he'll be on a lot of ballots.
I'm going to say this again. I don't care where they finish. And the West is the West. When you're looking at the West, you're talking about 21 losses, 22 losses, 23 losses, 24 losses, right? So there's
it's so tight.
From second to fifth, like that could change on any given night.
Yeah.
I don't care where they finish. If, and this is a if, right? Like to the point we're making, if they defend at a reasonable level, top third in the league level, and you get into series and you have Luka Doncic who's healthy and LeBron James playing at the level LeBron James is playing at, it is a very, very scary thing to play against, because you have two dudes that will just go above any X's and O's that you as the opposing coach can throw at them, and beyond the physical ability to go above the X's and O's, those two have the cerebral ability to look at what you're doing, dissect it. Like, not every great player does that. You know what I mean? Like, they're great players that can just physically go above your X's and O's as an opposing coach and get 40. Not everyone is equipped with the mental aptitude and the basketball IQ to be able to look at what you're doing on the fly, diagnose it, have an answer for it, and then orchestrate his own chess pieces around the board that night to beat it. And both of them can do that. That's scary.
Dragonfly Jones, he's a great guy on Twitter. Shout out to Jig and Jones podcast. He said this thing that that was really smart about LeBron, and I think it applies to Luka. There are rare players where they are just one-man universes and one-man types of offenses that can get you to a certain place just by them being on the floor. LeBron has clearly been one of those guys over the last decade. But then you have Luka as well. And I'm thinking about, Howard, the 2022 playoff run that the Mavericks had and the roster that he dragged to the conference finals. Albeit he did have Jalen Brunson, but Jalen Brunson wasn't this version of Jalen Brunson. And I look at this Lakers roster, swap Jalen Brunson for LeBron James, right? And you have Austin Reeves, who's, I think, doesn't get enough credit for also adjusting his game to play alongside this group. There was a big question on if he was going to play, how well he was going to play without the ball in his hands all the time, and he's played pretty well. That's what talks me into the Lakers going on a run, is that you have two guys that put the fear of God in you at any given postseason possession. And that's very anecdotally, right? We'll have to see what happens. But like, when the chips are down and it's a game 5 and the series is tied 2-2, I'm scared to death of Luka Doncic. And I'm definitely scared to death of LeBron James. They have both of them on the same team. And I think that's what I said at the trade deadline. Like, I didn't know what this team was going to be, but I know I'd be, if there were two guys that I think could figure it out and I'd be scared to death of, Luka Doncic and LeBron James. And I think that's just where we are right now. We don't know what the future holds, but that's what we know now, is we're scared as hell as both of those people.
Luka's not even playing at his best yet.
No.
Right.
I mean, to me, that's actually the scary part. The shooting's starting to come around. His turnovers are still a little high. Like, he's still feeling his way, because it's the first time he's ever played in a universe that is not completely centered around him. And the Lakers are still figuring that out too. Like, when are we LeBron centric? When are we Luka centric? The fact is, one of those guys can be on the court for all 48 minutes of every game. And that is just like the most insane luxury that you could possibly have. Like, two of the all-time great player, scorer, creator types, both of whom are like basically jumbo point guards, right? 6'8" and whatever. Like, it's almost unfair. And the only thing that offsets it or was going to theoretically offset it was, but they'll have a hard time defending because those guys aren't great defenders and they don't have any size, all the other stuff we just went through. And that stuff isn't even holding up. So it is scary. Like I say, I do want to, I still have my doubts about whether they could beat Oklahoma or Denver 4 out of 7 in a series. But at the same time, if I'm Denver or Oklahoma, I sure as hell don't want to face the Lakers.
100%.
Well, wow.
I don't want to be looking across the court at those two guys. And Austin Reeves has been playing at an incredible level himself, to the point where Laker fans that I follow on social media are talking about, I'm not even sure if it's semi-facetiously. There may be no facetiousness whatsoever in talking about a big three. Maybe you should slow down a little bit.
What's this Laker fans who did that? It was LeBron who posted it on Instagram about the new big three in Los Angeles. That's he did that. It was the Laker blog boy.
But you know what? If I play devil's advocate real quick on that, like obviously I agree with everything you just said, and you said something about OKC as I was watching them play the Rockets last night, as undermanned as the Rockets. The Rockets rolled out.
Rockets played their asses off.
They played their asses off. That style. This would be the pushback, and could be the Achilles heel of the Lakers in the playoffs. Not a guarantee, but if I was going to play devil's advocate with that, right? That though they play so physical, the amount of offensive rebounds and just scraps for second chances at balls and tips and hustles and dives on the floor to go get them. I mean, that like those teams could chop the legs out of a team like the Lakers over the course of a long series because it's so physical. Like they could be so punitive on the offensive glass if you can't control your defensive board. Like those type of things, if they could get at you in that way over the course of a series, could have, it might not be as easy as like, hey man, like we're above average defensive team and I have these two guys, because they could do things to you physically that you might not be able to match up with, i.e. like, both of those teams were just, I think one had 15, 14. They were just taking turns like volleyballing the ball off of the offensive board last night. It was kind of crazy. I was just thinking about that when you said OKC, because multiple plays where Chet and Hartenstein are playing off of each other and one misses and the other one's there to clean it up and they're so long and big. That would just be the kind of pushback.
All right. It's time for Cliff to come up in here. It is a Tuesday, so that means we have a motherfucking mailbag. Cliff, how does it feel to be in a torture chamber? Do you have any advice for the Mavericks fans?
Listen, man, just weather the storm, bear through it. Y'all be all right. Give it a couple years. And Nico, we trust, right? Like,
Cliff, how often are you running the odds on Tankathon for your Sixers right now to finish?
Bro, we just did it. We just did it yesterday. They got the number 2 pick the second time we ran it. So maybe Ace Bailey might come to Philly. You never know. Hopefully we capture the flag, get worse.
We got a couple games. Future's looking bright already.
It's looking bright, man. I love it. Speaking of a team I really hate, the Cavs and the Celtics, right? What's up, fellas? Love the pod. Smarter, happier, and better informed after each episode. Wanted to get a sense of positional or strategic matchups you think will determine the outcome of a potential playoff matchup between my Cavs and the damn Celtics. Do the Cavs need one of Hunter or Wade to play out of their mind to win a series against Boston? Thanks, Mustafa XL Kassan. Yeah.
Let's get it.
Someone's going to have to play out of their mind. Like you're going to need Donovan Mitchell to be Donovan Mitchell. And then he's going to need at least 2 other people to really go crazy in that series, provided everybody else is doing what they normally do. Like they ran them down the other night. Like that was a crazy, they couldn't be guarded. And you're going to have moments like that where Garland is doing that and Donovan Mitchell's doing that. And then you're going to need support from your role guys. Like it happens every year in the playoffs, especially when you play a championship level team. Like your role guys are going to have to step up and have big series in a way that maybe their role guys didn't, and that sometimes is the difference in a series. Stars usually do what they do in the playoffs, my boys. Like I say this all the time. Like stars usually show up, especially on teams that are championship level teams. Stars are going to do what they do. Who gets more support from the other dudes?
Every time I think about this series that we're expecting, right? Probably the conference finals, Cavs, Celtics. That's what we're expecting. Every time I think about it this way, the Cavs' entire offense runs through Mitchell and Garland, who have been phenomenal, both all NBA caliber guards, undersized as they are, but those guys do a lot of damage. Everything begins with them. And the Celtics can throw at you Drew Holiday, Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, maybe even a little Al Horford. I don't want to go that too far with that. But like they've got so many guys they can switch onto the guards and so many guys who can legitimately cover them that I wonder, how the Cavs offense will withstand it for a best of 7 series. And like that, to me, that's the whole thing. There'll be other matchups along the way that are interesting. And to Raj's point about like, who has a breakout, like, you get the Ty Jerome game. the Dean Wade game, the whatever, somebody bursts out on a given night. But I everything is about the star backcourt. And I just think that the Celtics are uniquely suited with their personnel to make life difficult for those guys. And on the flip side of it, I don't know that the Cavs have as many answers to try to slow down Brown and Tatum.
I agree. Next question.
That's all you got, Logan? Like, I agree. That's it?
What? I just agreed with two basketball experts. What do you want from me? The hell?
All right. This is from Will Plaza. This is completely biased because Allen Iverson is my favorite player. He says, I'm 40. My favorite player growing up was AI. His game was entertaining. His style was unique. The way he carried himself. He knew he was the shit. Crossed over MJ. Who is 2025 AI or who gets the closest? Another question just came to my mind. Has there been an AI type player since him?
I mean, I guess the answer is Ja, just in terms of like people loving his on-court game, having controversies off the floor, kind of being like, and I'm just making an argument. I don't think there's necessarily like an AI person, but if you're going to say somebody that's close to it, I would say him. But like, Ja doesn't play every game. I think that he had an opportunity to have that kind of cult-like following, but I think it's kind of it's over the last few years it's kind of waned. So I think that you see like bits and pieces of AI. I think there's some AI in Anthony Edwards. But I think the closest would have been Ja.
I'm going to defer to the one guy on this podcast who played with Allen Iverson.
Yeah, that's a very tough question. I don't know. I mean, because you could come at it from so many angles, right? Like if you're purely talking about the whole AI experience, which was kind of polarizing at first as a player, and then beloved and at times having some shit going on off the floor. Like we could get into that. If you're talking about purely as like a bucket on the court player, competitor, fierce, like gnaw his own arm off to get a win. And so I don't have a great comp. Like what I would say, I won't answer that question because I don't know, and I can't do it justice. I don't think that there's been or will be a player that does what AI did. That makes sense. Like, because of all the things that I just talked about, like you can attack him from so many different angles as a basketball historian. I don't know that anybody kind of fits the bill. As I want to do it purely as a player on the court. You're talking about, size profile, a style of play that kind of defies that profile because he did so much in the paint and around the rim and just off the bounce, and he was on the floor all the time. And even there, I mean, shit. I don't know, man. He was so unique. That dude was so unique as a player, man. Like, obviously, I played 12, 13 years, and I never saw anything like it. I don't know. I don't have a great answer for that.
Plus, he was only 6 feet and like generously listed at 6 feet at like 165.
Soaking wet
like
at 165.
How tall was he really, Raja? For real. How tall do you think Iverson was?
Yeah, he's 6 foot. Like, he's 6 foot. Like, I mean, he could have been a shave. He could have been a hair under that. If you told me he was 5'11" and 3/4, I wouldn't trip. If you told me he was 6
wasn't like
foot and a half
5'10"?
inch, no.
Okay.
That's it. All right, we got a Blazers question.
But he was slight. Like,
Yeah.
he was wiry, strong, and super athletic, but he was not a big body.
Yeah, that's why the Ja comparison is hard because like Ja's longer. He's a couple inches taller. He's got a little more weight on him, a little more muscle on him. Like I'm with you, Raj. I don't know that there's a great comparison.
Yeah.
Or has been.
All right, we got a Blazers question. Nobody shows the Blazers any love. This is from Tyler Roy Hart. Hi, I have a few questions from the perspective of a Blazers fan. The recent team's success is clearly due largely to sustained intensity, effort, and defense. These are the things that Billups said he was trying to create. Seems to me like he deserves a lot of credit. Then, do you agree? And really, how do you tell with coaches from the outside? It seems like accurately judging coaches aside from very worst to very best is really hard. I want to give Chauncey due credit, but it's hard to say how much that is. While this has been a lot of fun, and I do think this team has raised both its ceiling and floor, it's hard to see what the path forward to an even higher ceiling might be. One involving deep playoff runs without taking recent success for granted. I enjoy the hell out of it. What kind of offseason next steps make sense? Isn't this team in danger of getting stuck in that dreaded NBA lower middle? Ayton and Grant aren't worth all that much, right? I'm happy to have a team worth rooting for, a feisty little upset machine, but it seems like a hard foundation to build on. But maybe I'm missing something. Thanks, Tyler.
Good question, Tyler.
You want to answer that, Raj? I was fucking with you, bro.
Raja just wanted to praise him for having a really good question.
It's a great question.
Yeah, that's his
Not
analysis.
smart enough to answer that.
Man, just enjoy it, bro. I mean, if you get a good draft pick or something, it'll work out. But I think the barometer of a good team at the stage at the Blazers are at, that they play hard, right? That they do the things that they're supposed to. They're building good habits. They're building a culture. That's all you want to do right now. Like, it takes a little bit of luck to be great in this league. But in the meantime, man, like, just enjoy the process. Raja, did I do a good job with that?
I think you actually did, man. I thought you were going to say some stupid shit, but you actually you actually did hit the nail on the head a little bit there with especially from a coaching perspective with Billups. When you have a team like that doesn't have championship aspirations yet, and you're building, you just want to make sure that the message stays fresh, that guys are still playing for him, and that usually manifests itself in guys going out there playing hard and you seeming to have a really sound culture and stuff like that. So great job, Logan.
Congrats to Logan for exceeding Raj's low expectations.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're now coach of the year.
Do I get a fourth place vote for coach of the year? Anything, Howard?
No, Logan, I agree with you. Like, it's only been 2 years, less than 2 years since they shipped out Dame, right? Like, that was a traumatic moment and a huge inflection point for the franchise and for the fans. And it takes a while usually to build back up. So there's that. And you don't find Dame Lillards every day. And so, will Shaedon Sharpe or Scoot Henderson or somebody else who's either there now or coming soon emerge as the next Dame, somebody who you can, really love, get behind, and rallies the city, takes you on some deep playoff runs? Like, who knows? So yeah, like, enjoy the ride for now because you're seeing them taking great steps. I do think, like, the existential question is, like, do you have somebody you can actually build around? And the answer is probably no. Like, they're probably still looking for that guy. But in the meantime, they've got some really good, talented, interesting young players who are playing their butts off. Chauncey's doing a nice job. His job security certainly had been, doubts have been raised over the last year or so. So, props to them for being patient as a franchise and letting this group grow a little bit. Eventually, you got to decide, you got to pick a direction and figure out who actually is your foundation. But again, it's been less than 2 years since you traded your franchise star. You don't have to make that decision today.
Well, now it's time for a little segment we like to call Real One of the... No, I'm just playing Raja. Raja got to go. We will see you guys on Friday. Talk to y'all soon. All this shit's... Bye.